Welcome to the Patricia Fripp Sales Series. And as always, you are going to meet one of my most fascinating friends. Our subject is how customer service drives sales. My guest, Shep Hyken, is a past president of the National Speakers Association, as I am. He's also a Hall of Fame keynote speaker. He is an acknowledged customer service expert and a best-selling author. And we have a treat for you because we have been friends for many years. He wasn't married. He didn't have children in college. And so, Paul, will you please bring up the photograph of an earlier time with Shep and Fripp? So Shep Hyken started his career as a magician. So welcome, Shep, and tell our friends what this photo is.
Well, and actually, apparently you started your career as a magician's assistant. Thanks for having me on the show. Patricia, this is a trick that you and I did. Not only this, you'll see in a moment when you see me live, I actually don't have nearly as much hair as I do in that photo, and looks like I was pretty high on the receding line at that point as well. But you popped out of that box right after I had sliced you into 3 separate pieces. I took your middle out, I put it back together, opened up the doors, there you were, all together again. You walked out to thunderous applause. Later on, you went back to one of the 3 hotel rooms that you had that night. I believe you registered in room 701, 702, and 703. Get it? 3 pieces, sliced, diced. Anyway, it's so great to be here. Enough of that. Let's get serious. Let's talk about what they came
let's
here.
Not get too serious, because both of us believe the best way you train and teach is by having some fun and make it entertaining. I will tell our audience what I tell my friends. Since Shep cut me into 3, my clothes don't fit quite the same, and when it rains, I walk with a limp. Now, a very important part of our team, as you know, is Paul, and he will tell you how you can engage with us and introduce you to the first poll. Take it away, Paul.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a chat box. Within that chat box, you'll be able to ask your short, specific questions throughout the call. In addition to the chat, you'll see a few polling questions come up every now and again. If you will select your answer, then click vote. We'll discuss the results of the poll at each time that we post it. And also, if you have any aha moments, or if you want to share any words of wisdom that you learned, make sure to tweet it to #FrippVT. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first poll. Do you think it's important to satisfy your customers? You'll have about 60 seconds to answer.
And Shep, while our friends are filling in the poll, why don't you tell us how a magician turned into really one of your subject matter experts?
Wow. Well, it goes back to the time I was 12 years old when I performed my first birthday party. I was paid $16 to perform for an incredibly crazy, zany audience, the toughest audience I may have ever had. They were 6-year-old kids. There were 20 of them. And I went and performed. I came home. My parents said, "How was the show?" I said, "It was great." My mom said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "Homework." And she goes, "No, go write a thank you note." And little did I know that was my first lesson in customer service, show appreciation. Then my dad said, "You know what you need to do? Next week, after your customer, the parent, had received the thank you note, you need to call and make sure that you did a good job. Ask for feedback. And if they say you are great," and by the way, that's a great time to say thank you again. If you are great, say, "Hey, I noticed that there were some parents in the back of the room. Their kids were at the party. They were watching. Any chance you could give me their name and phone number?" And sure enough, they did. A week later, I called. I thanked the woman again for hiring me. She said I did a great job. I asked for some names and phone numbers. She gave them to me. And within about a year and a half, I was doing 8 to 10 magic shows. And I was using customer service as a vehicle to drive that success. Aside from being a good magician, and at a young age at 12, how good could I have been? Well, apparently good enough. And I think that's important. All products should do what they're supposed to do. Quality is important. But then the second part of it is, I was very polite. My dad said, you don't just show up on time, you show up early. You know, the parents are going to start looking at their watch, worrying about you about 10 or 15 minutes before you're supposed to be there. So get there before they start worrying, and stay a little bit later. You know, so get there early, stay a little bit late, which is different than what some of my employees do, which is they show up late and they make up for it by leaving a little bit early.
It's interesting, in the speaking career, part of my strategies that help my business is I always like to go whenever possible to a conference early and stay late. You make friends with the audience, right, even when they don't know that you're a speaker, and then if you can stay later, that's when they have time to talk to you and say, hey, you have to come to our company and all that type of thing. So the principles stay the same no matter what the business or industry.
Right, and most important, you show up early not only to get to know people, but you do a better job because you're more engaged. And on top of that, guess what? Your client doesn't get nervous. I think showing up late, and I know we're getting into other content right now, but I think showing up late is a huge sign of disrespect. Even if you're showing up to lunch with a friend, if you're 5 or 10 minutes late, what is that telling your friend? It's saying, hey, my time's more valuable than your time. Well, if it's a client, oh, well, as soon as somebody's 1 or 2 minutes late, you risk losing the sale. So part of customer service is a big part of sales, and we'll get into that in a little while. But I bet by now they have answered the question.
Yes. So, Paul, tell us the answer.
We've got 96% that says yes, it is important to satisfy your customers, and 4% that says no.
And I wonder what those 4% are thinking. Or perhaps they've seen me speak before and they know that this was a trick question. So here is the point. Satisfactory is a rating. If you, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent, the word satisfactory usually pops up in the middle. So to me, if you think about just satisfying the customer, you're basically saying average, just okay. That's what I want to do. The goal is to be better than just okay. There was a survey done at Vanderbilt University by 2 professors, Anthony J. Zahorik and Roland T. Rust. And what they found was in a typical frontline business, not necessarily what everybody in the audience that's watching today does, but in a typical frontline business like a retail store, up to 40% of satisfied customers don't come back, even when they're satisfied. Bain & Company said that number's too low. In a business like a restaurant or a hotel, it can be as high as 80%. And the reason they don't come back is because they're just satisfied. Satisfactory means average. Satisfactory is not good enough to get me to come back, especially when there's competition out there where I'd rather spend my hard-earned money for something that's better than just okay. So think of satisfactory as just, average or mediocre. The goal is to be better than that. And how much better? Just a little bit better, but when you're a little bit better all of the time and it's consistent and to the customer it's predictable, you are operating in what I call the zone of amazement.
I believe you've written books about amazement.
Yes, I have. The most recent one, Amaze Every Customer Every Time.
Well, Paul, will you bring up the next poll, which says, does your company have a customer service department? And Shep, why don't you share some of the ideas of how we would amaze our customers every time?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, as people are answering the question, it's a pretty simple question. It's a yes or no question, but I want you to think about this. Every interaction that you have with your customer counts. Now, years ago, there was a book that was written by Jan Carlson, former president of Scandinavian Airlines. The book was titled Moments of Truth, and he defined the moment of truth as any time a customer comes into contact with any aspect of a business, however remote, they form an impression. And that impression can be good or it can be bad. The bad impressions I call moments of misery. Those are complaints, those are problems, those are issues. The good ones I call moments of magic, and that's any interaction that's better than average. We just got finished talking about satisfactory isn't good enough. And by the way, if your interactions are just average or satisfactory, I call that a moment of mediocrity. Mediocrity, that's an ugly word, and as I mentioned, be a little bit better than average consistently all of the time. That's what a moment of magic is. If you're consistently delivering those, you will amaze your customers. Now, also, people think that when they hear that term, moments of magic, magic's big, wow, blow me away. It's cutting Patricia Fripp into 3 pieces and putting her back together again. And the other thing which people don't realize, sidebar here, is that Patricia actually floated in the air. We did another illusion together. That was a lot of fun. But anyway, back to the point here. It doesn't have to be, wow, blow me away with the most incredible wow levels of service I've ever had. The amazing companies are just a little bit better than average, but they're always a little bit better than average. And you know what? Anybody can be great when something falls in your lap. When a customer calls and says, I have a problem, and you solve it, or I have a complaint, and you resolve it. That is a great opportunity, but it falls in your lap. You need to be consistently better than average.
Wonderful. All right, Paul, what is the answer to the poll?
We have 53% say yes, their company does have a customer service department, and 47% that say they do not.
Well, that's good. Either answer was correct.
Exactly.
Again, not necessarily a trick question, but I want you to think about this. I believe that customer service is not a department. It's a philosophy, and it's a philosophy to be embraced by everyone in an organization. Now, if we are training customer service skills, we need to train them to everybody. Soft skills, internal customers, people that we work with internally need to be treated very similarly to the way we treat the outside customer. Now, there's no doubt that somebody on the front line who's in a, quote, customer service department, unquote, they will be trained a little differently than somebody that's in the warehouse that just needs to understand what the culture we're trying to create inside an organization is about. My favorite saying is, what's happening on the inside of an organization is being felt on the outside by a customer. So service internally is just as important as service externally. So forget about what you call the customer service department. Recognize that service is a philosophy to be embraced by everybody. And as you work on the front line, when you're listening, a lot of people listening and watching the show are in sales. Sales, and as you're interacting with that customer, more important than ever to think of selling with service.
Because many of the clients who hire us to speak at their conferences, Shep, they consider the customer service comes after the sale. Now, you have a totally different point of view on that. Right.
It happens at the very, very beginning. It starts with any type of advertising or marketing or brand promise that you create for your customer, because at that moment, they're going to get a feeling about you. And you know the old saying, people like to be around people or do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And the knowing and liking is easy because we create these images through our marketing, advertising, and maybe even the word of mouth that we hear. The trust part, as I go back to what we talked about earlier, comes from predictable experiences, positive predictable experiences. So customer service starts at the very beginning. Just when a customer decides, I think I want to do business with them, and let's say it's your traditional business where a customer would call up, want to talk to a sales rep. The way the phone is answered, the way you're transferred, the amount of time you have to stay on hold before you talk to your sales rep. When the sales rep finally does get on the phone, you know, what's that first impression that rep gives off? How is that phone answered? How much time is it going to take to go out and meet with that potential customer? And how easy is it to do business? Patricia, you used to start your customer service presentations with a question. Do you remember what that question was?
No.
Well, I remember when I first saw you do a customer
service. It's so long since I talked about customer service.
I know, it's been many years. But I remember I actually recommended you to one of my clients, if you remember, years and years ago for a customer service presentation, which, by the way, they say you knocked it out of the park.
Really?
But here was the question that you started with. How easy are you to do business with?
Really? Is that amazing? I have no recollection.
Well, that's what happens when you get old and you start to walk with a limp when it rains.
Yeah.
But no, that was what you started, and I never ever forgot that was how you were going to open your presentation. You shared that with me. Now, back to that, you know, how easy are you? You must be easy to do business. You must create confidence. This is before the customer ever says, yes, I want to buy from you. You're still in the sales process. It's all about selling with service. Every touch point along the way. So think about it in terms of this. There's something they call, whoever they are, the experts in the world of customer service and experience. It's called journey mapping. You map the customer's journey, and sure, there's different scenarios that different types of customers might have, but a very typical journey. And let's go back to Jan Carlson's customer service philosophy of the moment of truth. He mapped out the passenger's experience. They see a sign, they decide they want to fly on Scandinavian Airlines. So they pick up the phone, they make a reservation. That's a main moment of truth. On the day of departure, they check their bags at the curb. They go inside of the ticket counter. On the way to their gate, they just smile and wave at another flight attendant from Scandinavian Airlines. They're greeted at the gate. This is a journey map, and this is the touch points, what's happening at the very top, where the customer is actually interacting with the company. And you know what? That's all part of the process. So where, well, even making the reservation, that's part of the sales experience until they finally make that purchase. They give that person their credit card, and it's all set up. Everything up until that point has to be still a great experience. That's why I believe customer service permeates every part of the organization, sales especially. Selling with service, I said it before. And the other thing I want to emphasize is we talk about that journey map, what's happening behind the scenes to drive that experience. Back to the airline example, if I check my bag in St. Louis, Missouri, where I live, and I'm going out to San Francisco to visit you, Patricia, it takes about 4 or 5 hours to fly out there. If I see that bag go down the conveyor belt here in St. Louis, and then when I land in San Francisco, it comes out on the baggage carousel, probably 20 people touch that bag. Things had to happen. Things, strategies behind the scenes, mechanical, automated processes are happening to make sure that my bag gets to that baggage carousel. All of those behind the scene processes are called impact points. They're impacting what's happening at the front. That's why, again, I go back to what we said just a moment or two ago, which is customer service is not a department, it's a philosophy. Everybody's involved.
And Ms. Fripp, I apologize. If you can unmute yourself, there was a little bit of an echo.
You know, when you mute Patricia Fripp, you risk your life.
There you go.
All right, I am now unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, good. And tell me, Paul, if I echo. Listening to you, Shep, reminds me now of a lot of the stories that I used to tell. And one was at 11 o'clock at night. I called a hotel. And just said, "Can you send me the shuttle? You know, I have no problem taking a taxi, but I don't want to bill my client if you'll send me the hotel shuttle." And the young man said, "I'll try." And I'll say, no. I have no problem with you saying no, but there's no trying. There's yes, it'll be there in 20 minutes, or lady, you're out of luck. It stops at 10:30. So and what you and I do, Shep, we take the stories and examples of what happens to us, and we tell hundreds and thousands of people, and then our YouTube clips go around the world. However, everybody shares stories. And do you have the statistics, Shep, about if we're dissatisfied, how many people do we tell compared to those we say, "I just stayed at this really posh place"?
Well, the average happy customer tells 5 or 6 people. And by the way, I'm going to cite statistics that are a little bit old, and I'm going to tell you what's happening today. The traditional statistic was 5 or 6 people would hear about something great. 8 to 12 people would hear about something not so great. Is that like the squeaky wheel gets the oil? The unlucky 13% of people who are having a bad experience will tell 20 or more people. That's the unlucky 13. However, today it's different. Today we have social media. So, I have 75,000 followers on Twitter. And if I decide I'm going to say something bad about somebody, guess what? It potentially goes to 75,000 people. And beyond that, people start retweeting and sharing. And the next thing you know, it could go to 500,000, 1 million people. You know, the best example of this, and you probably know the story, is the YouTube video about the gentleman, Steve Carroll?
Oh, yes, United Breaks Guitar.
United Breaks Guitars. and they didn't want to take, they didn't want to fix the guitar that they broke when it was handled poorly underneath the plane when the baggage handlers were throwing it around. So he said, I'll write a song about it. United Breaks Guitars. And at about 300,000 views, United said, we'll fix the guitar. Just take down the video. And maybe it wasn't 300,000, but it was some high number. And he said, no, I'm not going to take it down. And he left it up there. And today, if you just type into Google United Breaks Guitars, you'll see about 16 million people have watched this video. And this guy's now on the map. And guess what? Now he's doing customer service presentations and competing against me.
But this is a perfect.
It's Dave Carroll, by the way. It's Dave Carroll.
Yeah, there is absolutely no way that you can now give a statistic, because this was before Yelp and social media. In fact, I found it interesting in my local restaurant where I have brunch at weekends with my pals after we walk in Golden Gate Park. I said, I don't like your coffee nearly as much as the coffee you used to have. And I said, well, I'm still coming here. I just drink my coffee at home before I get here. Tell your management. And the young wait person said, you'll be better off to write it on Yelp. They're going to take more notice of a Yelp than what we tell them. Now, how do you feel about that, Shep?
Well, I love that there is this social experience that we could have, because it does a couple of things. Number one, customers now have a voice that's louder than ever before. It can be amplified. And if you decide to give the gift of putting your comment, even if it's a complaint, on Yelp or TripAdvisor or any other social review site. And by the way, if you're in an industry that's in manufacturing and it's business to business, don't think you're exempt, because there are now industry review sites. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different review sites. If somebody gives you the gift, you have the opportunity to actually show the rest of the world that you're willing to step up and take care of it. And the gift of a complaint or a problem, and you respond quickly. And my friend Jay Baer, a wonderful guy, just wrote a great book called Hug Your Haters. And he's specifically talking about the people that leave nasty reviews on social media sites. If you embrace that as an opportunity and you show the rest of the world, number one, hey, I don't like that you experienced this. Please let us have a chance to work this out. You go offline or a different channel, or go, if it's a Twitter customer complaint, you can go into direct message mode, go back and forth, fix the problem, and come back on. But what Jay Baer says is customer service is now a spectator sport. If you are on social media, the world gets to watch. And not only that, it's distributable, meaning that if somebody likes what's happening, if you tweet to me a problem and then I resolve the problem and you come back and say, thank you very much for taking care of me, I'll tweet that out to the rest of my customers and they get to see that. So here's another really fascinating fact. Northwestern University did a study and they looked at all those review sites, and on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, most of them are doing a 5-star review, a 4-star review. If you see a negative review and amongst a number of positive reviews, that's credible. As a matter of fact, they found that the customer is more likely to buy if it was about a 4.2 or 4.3 average rating than if it was a perfect 5, which is, to me, is just amazing. But I think what it says is 5 all the time, that's a little too good to be true.
Yeah. Now, Paul, are there any questions from our listeners? Are they hanging on Shep's every word, or are they posing any questions to you?
They are hanging on Shep's every word. There's 1 or 2 comments that customer service is not a department from the polling question earlier. And then from Stuart, says, from the very first picture, wow, what a pair of legs. Yours are quite nice too, Fripp.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stuart.
Well, as I said to Shep, Stuart, this is for you. I might not show my arms in public, and Shep doesn't have hair. However, we are now richer and smarter than we were when that photo was taken.
Much, and to me, that may be more important. If you go to the pool at that fancy hotel, you see these beautiful women hanging around this not so attractive man. It's not because of what he looks like, right?
I'll
And
take
it's
your
the other
word
way
for
around
it.
too. You can see a not so attractive woman with a bunch of good-looking guys. You tell me. She's buying the drinks.
Well, whatever you say. All right, Shep. Now, your clients hire you a lot because they love your customer loyalty philosophy that they want to add to their company. So what is it?
Well, I think it's all about creating confidence, that great service plus confidence potentially equals loyalty. And how do you create that confidence? We go back to what we talked about at the very beginning. Your interactions with the customer are very predictable. You know, when you're dealing with a salesperson and you're meeting them at appointments and your customer says things like, you know what, he's always or she's always on time. Let's use the word they. So we're genderless here. They are always so friendly. They're always so knowledgeable. And you know, they or he or she followed with the word always, followed then by something that's positive. And even if it's something like there was a problem and the customer says, I love doing business with them because even when there's a problem, I can always count on them. So anything positive after the word always is what's important, and that's coming from a place of confidence.
Wonderful. And Paul, if there are any questions, just please interject.
Yeah.
And Shep, you promised us you'd give us a handful of fast, easy to adapt customer service suggestions.
Oh, wow. Okay, I can do them. So this is like the lightning round.
Okay.
All right. Let's give you 5 of them. Maybe I'll come up with more. Number 1 is manage first impressions. And that's not the first time you meet somebody. It could be the 500th time. What you're doing is you're setting the tone for whatever interaction is to follow. A second one would be to demonstrate your knowledge. If you have a depth of knowledge or your organization has some great knowledge and research, share that with your customers. Let them know that you're knowledgeable, that you have the information. By the way, if you don't know it, but you know where to go or who to go to get it from, that is just as important. That knowledge creates confidence. As we mentioned just a few minutes ago, confidence can lead to customer loyalty. So number 2 is knowledge. Number 3, build rapport, communicate on a level past business, talk to people about what they're interested in. They love talking about their kids. If you find out they have kids, ask them about their kids. Don't ask them about their husbands and wives. They come and go. But the kids will always be their kids. So that would be number 3. Number 4, create a personalized experience. Recognize that customers are not numbers, they're not accounts, they are people, and treat them as such. And if there's a way to interject some type of a personal something, let's say just even using their name maybe personalizes the experience a little bit more, especially if you're in a call center or support center and you're talking to somebody on the phone. So that's 4. Let's give you a 5th one, and this one's really important: consistency. Everything you do is an all-the-time thing. You can't be great one day and just okay the next day. It is all of the time. A famous actor from your part of the world, Richard Burton, I believe, I don't know if he said this, but I read that he said it, and this man had all types of problems in his life. But when he walked out on stage to deliver a performance in a play that he was in, night after night, I might add, his goal, and he said this, I want to be so good tonight that I actually cheat the audience that was here the night before. Can you be better every day? With a consistent effort to do so, your customers can't help but be amazed and appreciate the good work that you're doing. And I'll give you a bonus one. Don't ever forget to say thank you. Mom taught me that when I was 12 years old. How's that for a callback? Mom taught me that when I was 12 years old, and it is every bit as important as it is today as it was way back then, and that is for anybody in any business. Make sure that your customers know how much you appreciate the opportunity to work with them.
And your dad was a barber.
No, I know who you're thinking of. No, that would be my friend Giovanni. His dad was a barber.
Well, yes, I know, but I had the feeling. What did your dad do?
He sold insurance, which I guess it's. I don't know if you. How can I draw the analogy to a barber?
No,
but,
you can't.
I'm thinking.
You don't need one.
How can I tie this together? No, my dad sold insurance, and his company, before he passed away, he actually had a sandwich manufacturing facility. you would buy these little plastic wrap sandwiches and zap them in the microwave. That was my dad's business.
All right, good. But your kids, I mean, as a kid, you got the training
Right.
that certainly positioned you, that just exactly what our subject is. Customer service does drive sales, especially when it is not a department, it is an attitude for everybody. In fact, one of our interviews a couple of months ago was with Andy Paul, who's the author of Zero Time Selling. And his point is, one, you follow up fast, and believe me, I'm following up a lot faster since I worked with him on his presentation and read his book. But also, he said, especially if you have technical sales, have somebody who answers the phone who actually can give you a good answer. I know yesterday I had a problem, and we were going through fourth tier help, and of course I'm first tier, and you know, my assistant is very technical. He worked in technology. He says, I know you're answering, you have to go through your standard questions, but can we go forward? I used to do your job 2 pages and get us to the next level. So it can be very frustrating if people are not empowered to put you through immediately who can help or answer the phone giving you the right help.
You know, at the end of the day, that's called friction, and friction will cause you to go find some other place to do business that's less friction. If every time I talk to a support rep, I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, I bought a new computer. So I called, and I bought from this company in the past. So I called the company up, and they asked me for my account number. And I give them my account number. And they say by name, sure, Mr. Hyken, we'll get you to a sales rep right away. I get the sales rep, and I say, so how are you? He says, who am I talking to? This is Shep Hyken. Can I have your account number? Why did I just give somebody my account number? Why do I have to repeat the same story over and over again? That's bad for sales. They're wasting my time. Time is money. I'll go spend it somewhere else.
Good. Well, Shep, you and I both have created our online virtual interactive training to support our clients now. And Paul, if you can bring up, let's do a demo of Shep on demand, and tell us, how do your clients use your interactive virtual training to help take your philosophy into their companies?
Sure. As Paul's bringing it up, just very, it's very simple. I believe, it's not just for the customer support department, it's for everybody. And so this has been created with everybody in mind, whether you're in the warehouse, whether you're at an executive level, or whether you're dealing directly with a customer in a support role, or you're selling. These tips and tools and techniques and strategies and tactics are all that you will need to help build that stronger relationship.
Well, should we look at a little virtual Shep?
Sure. Can we pull it up?
Absolutely. Just one moment.
There we go. Oh, we're going to sign in. See how easy this is. You sign in. And by the way, imagine that I'm sitting with you one-on-one anytime you want. 3 o'clock in the morning, this is why we call it Shep on demand. Anytime you want to get a little burst of customer service, you want to go through the entire course, there I am. It's as if, there's my buddy Don Hudson.
Oh, that is I'm apologizing.
Yeah, that's not me. That's a guy with
we had Don Hudson last week, or last time, a couple of weeks ago. So I'll tell him that we promote his system again. But this is probably the best way. I don't know, Shep, if you've heard, I call it the dirty little secret in the training industry, and you and I make a comfortable living speaking and training. However, 70%, now this is with a good audience who is interested in the subject, not told to go get fixed. A good speaker, which we certainly are. Hang on, I'll finish this. Paul, I'll let you show it, and I'll finish my example when we finish.
I want to know the dirty little secret.
Okay, well, the dirty little secret is when you have a great speaker, an interested audience, and everyone is totally engaged, 2 weeks after they've forgotten 70% of what they heard.
Right.
Now,
And so,
hopefully the 30% makes a difference, but the only way you learn any skill is repetition and reinforcement. And you might say, I've heard this before. Yes, but are you actually doing it?
right, and it should be over and over. And the nice thing about virtual training is it is on demand, and the idea is at any time you can get it 24/7. You can watch it at home, at the office, on your phone, on your iPad, or any other type of tablet. It's there when you want it, when you need it, and it's like we're sitting right across from you, talking and teaching you these important ideas.
All right, so Paul, can you show just a little virtual Shep, just so they see he's just as handsome online?
Yes, this is the introduction for Shep on Demand.
Welcome to Shepherd Virtual Training. My name is Shep Hyken, business expert and New York Times best-selling business author. I'm excited to introduce you to my new interactive virtual training system where we're able to bring you some of the best corporate training available. Through Shepherd VT, users are given the opportunity to view, engage, and retain valuable strategies and techniques that will bring your professional skills to a world-class level. If you're ready to sign up, please click the join button now. Remember, there's no time like the present to elevate your skills to the next level for yourself and your organization.
Well, there we are. Good. Well, and then Paul, in a minute we'll show everyone Fripp VT. However, Shep, do you have any, if we have any companies or if it's for an individual, is there any sort of offer, or what would be the best way to get started? You don't offer a free trial, do you?
Well, actually, we can do that. Well, we'll talk about it. First of all, Paul, thank you for showing that, but you probably showed the most boring clip of all the clips that were on there, and that's that opening boring introduction. If anybody wants to go to shepondemand.com, they can check out several other clips that are on there, and you can see my famous cab driver story. I've actually put it onto this program. But to your point of pricing and demo, yes, if you're a company that's interested in this, we are happy to talk to you. We'll give you full access because you need to know what you're getting into. As far as pricing goes, we have what we call corporate pricing, which dramatically reduces the cost. If you've got 100 people, 200 people, 5,000 people, we have clients that go into the thousands. We get the price down to 75, 80% off of what the individual price would be based on the volume that you would request.
All right, and certainly whatever Shep says is the same for me. But Shep, let's transition into how you say customer service starts long before the sale, and of course my area of expertise is how do you prove Shep's philosophy with what you actually say. And here are a couple of points that get reinforced in Fripp VT. And that very simply is the key to connection is conversation. The secret of conversation is to ask questions. And the quality of the information you receive depends on the quality of your questions. And so often, when companies, before I work with them, they have some of their salespeople, and even those who are seasoned, they get cocky. And I'm sure this is the same in customer service, but sales professionals get cocky. They think, look, I know all about my product. I certainly, I've been in technology sales or in this industry for a decade. I can wing it. I can think on my feet. And although you certainly, and I would highly recommend you have an outline for your presentation, you need to make sure that each person you talk to realizes you have some research about them before the first conversation. So let's just say you have a lead, or even if you're cold calling, you need to, it would be the old-fashioned, Shep, the sort of training we used to hear when we first got into speaking, you got to make 100 cold calls a day. Honestly, wouldn't it be better to have 10 calls that you actually know who you are talking to and you've got some research? Now, if you're following up, because of technology, you can research the individual or the company that you're talking to. And you ask good questions. It is so easy to turn the conversation to the other person. So, for example, here's a tweetable quote, #FrippVT. If you want to be interesting, you have to be interested. In other words, ask good questions. I was coaching one of my clients, and she said, very simply, my job is to drive sales, and I'm not doing a very good job. And I said, well, can you give me an example? And she said, well, I had this opportunity, and it's where the vendors go in and they're talking to a committee of people, and they said, tell us about your company. And she told me what she said. And I said, well, that's what they asked you. That isn't really what they asked you. And that shouldn't, the question you should be answering is what they really meant is, tell us specifically how your company can help us solve the problems that we have in the request for a proposal. That's what they were really asking. So if you ask good questions, and what you need to find out in your questioning, and Shep, feel free to jump in anytime you want to add to this, we need to find out, one, what are their opportunities? What are their challenges? What are they most interested in? And remember, we are speaking to be remembered and repeated. Because very often when you're first starting developing a relationship, you are not getting to the economic buyer. You're not going to get the person who can say yes. So when you talk to somebody, one, as Shep would say, you have to treat them as respectful as the person who can say yes. Develop a relationship with them, because this is your champion who is going to give you the information you need that will lead to a formal presentation.
Right, and Patricia, you coached me on a very important speech that I did. I don't know if you remember this. It was probably about 6 years ago. I hired you. We spent 2 days together.
Locked in a hotel room in Las Vegas.
Locked in a hotel room, not doing what people normally do in a hotel room, but writing and scratching out and editing. And one of the things we talked about was something called the magic question. And I want to share this because if you are in front of that economic buyer, the magic question is, and I got this from a gentleman named Dan Sullivan, who is my coach. I go to the Strategic Coach program, great program. But anyway, the magic question is, if we were to get together a year from now, what would have to happen for you to feel that this was the best, you'll have to fill in the blank, decision to buy whatever it is that you ever made, okay? But that's the point. If we were to get together a year from now, what would have to happen for you to feel this was the best decision? And this is what happens. They'll think about it. If they really think about it, they'll, number one, start to tell you what success criteria looks like from whatever it is that you sell. Number two, they'll be thinking that you or your company are actually in this picture, because you're asking the question, if we got together a year from now, what would have to happen for you to feel that this was the best purchasing decision you ever made?
And this is all great, and it's you look at the quality questions make such a difference. I was introduced, Shep, to an executive, and I spoke at a speechwriters conference, and the head of communications said, oh, can I introduce you to my boss? Well, I did a little research and found out he just turned around a company, and he got promoted, so he was giving a big speech in Moscone Center. And so the first question, his director of communications introduces, said, Patricia, why don't you tell Brian how you work with executives? Now, knowing the advice that I gave my friend is, it really doesn't matter how I work with executives. It's how am I going to work with this executive? And by doing a little research, I said, Brian, congratulations. I know you just turned around this division and got great success. Specifically, how did you do that? And 25 minutes later, I heard of his 4-step process. And I said, Brian, I assume that this is the framework of your presentation you'll be delivering at Moscone because it's word for word perfect. And this is, and for any of us who use customer service in sales, Shep, this is the technique. And really, I did it with you. I did it with you.
You asked me a lot of questions.
No, but what you do is you don't sell by telling what you do. You sell by showing. So it's you sell by doing it. So when I have a client or you know, a good prospect, and they say, well, you know, what's it going to cost, or how will it look like, or you know, how do you work? I say, well, let's just step backwards for a moment. If we were locked in a room together, what presentation would be working on? So I actually start, well, how, if left to your own resources, you know, what's the big idea? You know, every speech has a central theme. How would you do that? And then, well, how would you open? And I say, well, you know, that's not bad if you're president of the Rotary Club. However, I think we can do better seeing you're opening a convention with 300 of your dealers. Why don't you try this? See if that fits in your mouth. So it's what you were saying, Shep, long before they hire you, you are adding value. You're giving them good service even if they never hire you. And I call this you sell by doing.
I love it. Love it. And that's exactly what you did. Do you remember when I first approached you, we were at a hotel. Boy, there's a theme. We were at a hotel in Washington, D.C., and I approached you with the idea that I wanted to engage you to help me, and you said, let's spend a few minutes and talk about it. And we went upstairs to the concierge level, not to the hotel room, and you sat down with me and you pulled out a tape recorder, back when there were tape recorders, and you put in a cassette tape and say, let's talk about what you're trying to achieve. And I remember you asked me what I wanted first, even though I had asked you to explain how you would help me. And at the end of about 30 minutes, you gave me this cassette tape and you say, now go back and listen to this. There's a lot of good ideas, and let me know if you're interested in working together. And that's all it took.
Yeah. Good. Now let's look at our friends who have, and Paul, are there any questions we need to answer at this point?
There was one question from Stuart in Glasgow. He said, he
Yay,
asked,
Stuart! Yay, Stuart! And thank you, if it's the Stuart, I think it is, thank you for reposting this on your Facebook page.
and he asks, do you have any advice on how businesses can counteract brand disloyalty?
Shep, I'll give that to you.
Okay, advice on how to counteract brand disloyalty. So I'm going to assume that we have that negative review from an individual or somebody going out and you know, posting something negative. Once again, and I mentioned this earlier, that when it comes to the social world, customer service becomes a spectator sport. And that means we have to constantly engage in those mediums and channels and respond appropriately. So what we want to do is we want to turn around somebody. We want to get them to at least consider doing business with us again. And the way we do it is quick response. We listen to what the problem is, and actually I have a 5-step process, and this is actually part of the program on my online virtual training. Is number 1, you acknowledge that there's a problem. Number 2, you apologize for it. Number 3, you discuss what the fix or the resolution is going to be. Number 4, you do it with the right attitude, one that's positive and one that's of ownership. You know, it might not be you that caused the problem, but now it's in your lap. And number 5, you do it with urgency. And if you do those 5 things, acknowledge and apologize, which, by the way, those can be flipped around. Fix it, attitude, urgency. That will hopefully turn somebody that is not happy with you, that has become disloyal to you, and they'll say, you know what? They took care of it. Because the goal is not just to fix the problem, it's to restore confidence.
Good. In fact, I have a 5-step, Shep, on how you improve any presentation.
Let's hear it.
Well, yes. So one, you have to open with impact and close on a high. 2, emotionally connect to your audience, and you do this with you-focused language through stories and eye connection, which is a little deeper and longer than eye contact. 3, you have to have a simple, logical structure built around a premise or a big idea. So your talking points prove your premise. And in a business environment, if you are a salesperson, your premise is your company would be better off doing business with our company. Now, you're not going to state it, but that is your central theme. And every talking point, every example proves your premise. So we open with impact, close on a high. We emotionally connect. We have a simple logical structure so you can remember, and so can the audience. 4, you have you have good stories and examples so that your audience can see and understand how people would do business with you. Or as a speaker, we all know your cab driver story is, even if people have hired you to tell it multiple times, oh, they want to hear it again. There are these stories help people remember your message. They help explain the complex. And then 5, and my crusade in life that I'm failing at, is to clean up sloppy language. Specificity builds credibility. So,
I use the word things.
Well,
but I only did it once in an hour. That's pretty good.
I know. Well, in everyday conversation, when you're not pre-planned, it's of course easier. It's natural to do. However, with how you answer the phone to answer a customer service issue, how you present your company, if it's a presentation that you're going to give, you think about it in advance what you're going to say in all these situations, so you come up with the specific tight language that you're going to use. And Paul, would you like to bring up Fripp VT? And we'll just show people, and again, if you are not a Fripp VT user, we encourage you to go to Fripp VT, sign up for a free trial. You get a free chapter on stories, one on openings, and one on sales. So you click on, you see, very easy, you click on your trial, and this is the best way you can learn to be a great speaker easily, conveniently, and quickly. All you have to do is put your name and email address, and to get your trial. And we look, certainly if you have a company, as Shep said, the more sign-ups there are, the lower the price. So Paul, let's go in. We have 12 different courses. Let's just show them the first part of our sales, Chapter 1, Superstar Sales Presentations, the Inside Secrets.
Superstar Sales Presentations, the Inside Secrets. In this course, you will learn the secrets of making your sales presentations more compelling. This will give you a seemingly unfair advantage over your competition. If you're ready, click the Start Training button.
Okay, well, Paul, I see. All right.
What do poor sales presentations really cost? In Chapter 1, you heard in some cases $9 million a year. For some of my clients, even more. However, they are costs beyond the actual dollars from the lost sale. How many people do you think worked on the request for proposal or prospecting and follow-up?
So that's fine. So that's Paul. That's fine, Paul. So as you can see, and I'm sure Shep, you would totally agree with this. Just where is this? It takes so much work to get to the point where you have the presentation. Now, if you make a sale, if you're not using customer service along the way, if you're not easy to do business with, they'll think, well, you'd expect them to be working harder now before they get the business. What's it going to be like after? So I hope our audience will totally agree that sales and service are combined. It's not either or, part one, part two, it's together.
And it's not just that. I'm going to add a third piece to this, and that is sales, service, and presentation skills.
Of course. How you talk about your company, and more important, how your company will solve the problems or help maximize opportunities in the best way. Shep and I both agree, and remember that dirty secret, whether it's for you personally or for a company, it doesn't matter how well your team is trained. You need some way for repetition and reinforcement, and we hope you will consider Shep On Demand and Fripp VT. So with that, Paul, do you have any questions we haven't handled?
There are a few, and if we run out of time, we can answer those offline via email.
Okay, well, we'll shut up and pose them, and we'll answer them in as fast as we can. We have about 4 minutes. We can keep going, Shep, but we do want to honor people's commitment.
Go for hours.
All right.
All right, so Shep, how did you transition from magician to customer service guru to music genius?
So, I actually had a great love for customer service back then. The quick answer is my parents taught me some good skills, and they were very good for me to learn, not just to run my magic business, which, by the way, within about 1.5 to 2 years, 8 to 10 magic shows a week, making as much, obviously charging more than $16. I was making quite a bit of money for a young kid. My parents made me have regular jobs, too, in the summer. I was working in a gas station, and actually when I was in college, I was working for the same company. At the gas station on a Saturday morning in the middle of winter while I was in college. It was so cold. An elderly woman pulls up, and I say, ma'am, stay in the car. I'll pump your gas. Now, we were a self-serve station. Even then, I knew what good customer service was like. I told my manager I wanted her to come back next time because I wanted her to love us versus the station across the road. When I graduated college, I looked for a job. I saw a couple of motivational speakers. I said, I can do that. I had the entertainment background, and I love the concept of customer service. And I decided to write a speech about that. And that's exactly how I got into this business. And I wrote and I researched and I learned. And over the past 30 some odd years, yes, I know I don't look that old, but over the past 30 some odd years, I developed all this expertise, learning not just from on-the-job experience, but from research and from so many different clients.
And I hate to admit it, Shep, but I have been focusing on presentation skills, really going back to the Dale Carnegie class and Toastmasters since 1975. So when people invest in our training and VT systems, they get decades of the very best information. Okay, Paul, next one.
All right. What if the disloyalty is based on price, but the customer service is spotless?
Oh, well, I think you have to make a decision as to what lane you want to play in. If you want to play in the low price category, like a Walmart, you advertise your prices. But, there are going to be customers where price is absolutely the most relevant piece of the equation. However, if you go into a Walmart, you still receive friendly service. On the other hand, if you walk into, say, a Nordstrom, you will receive service that is a much higher level, and guess what? You're going to pay for it as well. But there's a reason that both Walmart and Nordstrom are doing so well. They have their value propositions. One service, one is sales. Very difficult to do both. It's hard to be the low price and deliver the highest level of service, but there is a balance in there. And at the end of it all, sometimes it is the service that trumps the price. And with the right value proposition, service makes price much less relevant.
And part of the job of a good sales professional is to ask questions to find out what is the issue with that your service or product is going to solve. And if you watch Don Hudson, his presentation was on how we sell value. All the Fripp VT experts, it all comes back is you're selling value, it's being persuasive, it's giving the service, and you will all be receiving an invite to next week's sales series with Troy Harrison, which is how we change our techniques, certainly with social media, how a sales professional or a consultant selling themselves needs to change. All right, Paul, another question?
Yes, we have. What about the musician part?
What about the what?
How did you go from magician to customer service guru to musical genius? You left off the musical genius part.
Oh, somebody knows that you're a guitarist.
Who is that person? Yes, I play guitar. You know what? I will never be bored in my life. I have all these hobbies. I've been playing guitar since I was 12, and if you look hard enough on YouTube, you'll find me playing guitar with an amazing band that I refer to as Them. Basically, my bandmates, one of them played for Pink Floyd, one played for Foreigner, and tours with Pink. Get the theme Pink in there. Bonnie Raitt, Ringo, and you know I get to say who they played for. And when you say, well, who did I play for? I play with Them. So that's my band.
Good. And here's another important point that you might overlook. So whether it's us showing you the photo of Shep cutting me in three, Shep, of course, and some of you know, being a musician, is if you want to do business and stand out, become an object of interest to your clients. And that is, obviously, you don't waste time, but you have to build rapport. And in a perfect world, you will be such an interesting person that becomes so important to them. I always remember when I was a men's hairstylist, and this was when men's hairstyling was new, one of my clients came in and said, you wouldn't believe it, last Saturday, 4 of your clients, you know, we were all together, and who would have thought we spent about 45 minutes, the men talking about their hair at a dinner party. So it's you have to be an object of interest and have moments of
magic
and not moments of
misery.
Paul, are there any more questions we haven't got to?
There are a few.
All right, quick. Shep, if you can give a really short answer, we appreciate you hanging with us.
Do you always incorporate magic into your public speaking? Why or why not?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Paul.
Do you always incorporate magic into your public speaking? Why or why not?
Sure. I usually put 2 or 3 short little tricks, if you would call them that, into the speech. The main reason is because, as Patricia just said, it's an object of interest. Instead of just telling a story, I might illustrate it with a magic trick. By the way, not many magic tricks can fit into a speech and really make a point, so I work hard to find just the perfect trick to give it the most impact.
And I remember when we were together, I encouraged you, no, put another one in. You're getting too far. It can't all be magic because you are a real expert and best-selling author, but just a little. Good. Another?
Well, and real quick, what's funny about this, if I do an hour presentation, I might put 7 or 8 minutes of magic, which is 2 or 3 bits in there. And when you ask somebody, how much magic did I do, like, you know, by a percentage, I don't know, like half of it. And the reason is because it's the sugar that makes the medicine go down. So, and it's what makes it more interesting and gives the speech texture and interest. So it is amazing the impact it can make.
Okay. Paul?
All right. How do let's see here. Sorry about that. When you have a great customer service, but sometimes you get, I have to ask my wife, what should you say?
Wow, I have to ask. Well, how about if it's how I have to ask my husband? You know, that's a great question. Now, that's a sales type of question. I have to ask my wife. What do you think your wife would say? Respond. Take that question and respond with a question to get deeper and understand what it is that's concerning the customer.
Good. All right. Keep going, Paul.
All right. If a small company does not have a customer service department, do you pinpoint one employee to be the lead agent, or just empower all employees to address any problems or challenges?
Oh, that's like one of my favorite questions. Everybody is in customer service. And by the way, a really cool thing that you can think about is that you would divvy up the responsibility of customer service between the few employees that you have. If you've got 4 employees, just say for the first 2 hours, whatever you're doing, you're also doing customer service. Second 2 hours, you over here, you're going to be involved in customer service. So everybody gets a chance to play that game. And when you're so busy and you've grown, then you start adding people specific to answer the phones and deal with the customer support roles.
And Paul, I see one from Ed. He wants some examples on how to amaze a client. We do the red carpet, booty covers, call before the show and thank them after our visit. Now, I'm not quite sure what industry that is, but do you have a couple of ways beyond what you've done, Shep, of your clients who might amaze that come out in your research for your books?
So I mean, I'm not sure what do they do differently than others? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
So it sounds to me like the question is, we give away something, or we doing this. I just interviewed a gentleman named John Rulin, and John is a specialist in gift giving, the right and perfect gift. He actually just came out with a book called Giftology. I think it's out this week, as a matter of fact. In the book, he talks about, and you might be constrained with budget. Number one, you're not allowed to give something of high value to a customer because they're not allowed to take it. It's company policy of theirs. Or number two, it just may be your budget. So it's the thought that counts. But here's the key, and I mentioned this, I think, earlier when I was going through my 5 or 6 points. A personalized experience. Customers aren't accounts, so why give everybody the same exact gift? They're people. Maybe there's something that you know that your customer would appreciate. Our good friend Brian Lord, one of our favorite agents that likes to book both of us, right? Brian once gave his client a $15, he bought it on eBay, signed baseball. He knew that the client loved this baseball player. He saw it, he bought it, and you know what? His logo wasn't on it. He gave it, and wow, this customer was impressed and a friend forever.
Good. And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for your participation. We appreciate your questions, your interest, your support. Please go to Fripp, VT, and Shep on demand. Look around. And certainly feel free to talk to us if you have any questions. And watch the emails. You will receive a replay link. If you are watching this as the replay, we hope you enjoyed it as much as the people who were live. And I hope to see you next week with Troy Harrison for another fascinating conversation. Shep Hyken, do you have a walk-away comment?
Wow. Well, I want to go back to something we talked about before. Customer service isn't a department. It is a philosophy to be embraced by everybody, from the CEO, owner of a business, to the last person that was, or the person that was just hired. Think about it. It's everybody's job.
Good. And with that, Paul, thank you very much, as always, for keeping us on track, monitoring and helping people behind the scenes. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, customer service does drive sales.